12th Prince Momoze dies on day 1. She gets on the boat, her guardian beast racks up a few kills, she takes a nap, and she never wakes up. Who killed her? Well, Tufty did. Case closed. Except that if all we do is point the finger at Tufty, we'll be ignoring the systems that made Momoze's death inevitable. And by systems, I don't just mean the succession war in general, although we can blame Nasubi too, this whole thing is his fault. But we can go deeper than that and identify 3 specific mechanisms within the war that all worked together to produce this result. And these mechanisms will affect the rest of the war, whereas Tufty will not. So let's get right into the list, see why Momoze really died, and see what the other princes need to watch out for. The first mechanism to look at is the queens. We learned last time that they've got spies all over the place, so they're a big factor in the war, but whose side are they on? Oito's only got Wobble, so her loyalty is obvious, but 4 of the 8 queens have given Nasubi multiple children, and the war is only supposed to have 1 winner. This system is incentivizing them to play favorites, throw all of their resources behind one child to maximize their chances and sacrifice the rest. Momoze's mother, 7th Queen Savanti, sees this situation clearly, and she does not hesitate. As soon as the war begins, here she is, moving half of Momoze's guards over to her son Mariam's room. And it's not just a matter of how many guards she left with her daughter, it's which guards she left with her daughter. I missed this detail on my first couple of reads, but look at Momoze's 6 remaining champions. It's Benjamin Soldier Vict and 5 spying queen's guards from the Elder Queens. Savanti deliberately left her daughter in a room with nothing but enemies. As you might expect from that, Momoze dies immediately, and now watch what happens. Savanti kicks up a fuss about how those 6 guards are murderers and gets them taken into custody. The end result is that the loyal guards are all in Mariam's room and the disloyal ones have been disposed of. It's a ruthless maneuver, but as the 7th queen, without a lot of resources of her own, it was probably her best move if she wanted either of her kids to survive. Mariam does end up in a pretty good position, although we'll get to that in a future video. So I just said Savanti doesn't have a lot of resources, but guess who does? The 1st and 2nd queens, Unma and Dwazel. They both have multiple children to choose from, and they've also got the biggest spy networks, so they can put a lot of support behind their prince of choice. All of these princes should be wondering what their mother plans to do. Will they be chosen as the favorite, or will they be sacrificed like Momoze? The second mechanism is the rank and file guards. They've got their own set of incentives. Most obviously, they work for the person who's paying them, which is how we spotted that Momoze's guards all wanted her dead. But as much attention as we have to pay to which guards work for which queens and all that, it's a mistake to think that they're just pawns of their employers and that's the end of it. If you're one of these guards, you've got a lot more than that on your mind. For one, there's pressure on you to guard the prince that you're supposed to be guarding, oddly enough. As we just saw, failure to do that can land you in prison, even if you didn't kill the prince yourself. And if you're held responsible, it's the death penalty for you and your whole family, so the stakes are pretty high. The queen might tell you to kill Momoze, but fear of the judiciary is going to make you very cautious in how you go about it. Another thing to consider is which prince you think will end up on the throne. These Queen's Guards in room 1012 are weighing the risks and rewards here, and they're not thinking about a pat on the back from their queens. They want cushy appointments in the coming monarchy. In that sense, every guard has some reason to try and get in good with Prince Benjamin, who's obviously in the strongest position in the war. When he becomes King Benjamin, you definitely want him thinking of you as an ally. And the last point I'll mention is just basic self-preservation. Like, before you can worry about execution being handed down by a judge or tyrants, you have to worry about not dying in battle. Hanzo tricks Tufty by saying he's a recruiter for Prince Benjamin, and it's obvious why Tufty would want to be recruited, right? Your best odds of making it through a war alive are to fight on the winning side. Tufty answers to 5th Queen Swinko Swinko, so unless he has a lot of faith in Sale Sale, it's natural for him to turn his coat the first chance he gets. There's other, even more personal reasons that a guard might betray their ostensible employer, but this is a good enough overview of the competing pressures that they're all under. The princes have been raised to see their minions as tools and expect absolute loyalty, but we already see that the loyalty of a guard is very contingent. That could prove to be a fatal blind spot for any prince left in the war. The third mechanism we'll look at is the guardian beasts themselves, so we have to stop for a second and figure out how they work. The seed urn ceremony kind of seems like a magic ritual that can spontaneously generate these 14 powerful beasts, but it's not magic, it's a Nen ability powered by vows and conditions. And the user of that ability is the first king of Kakin, so it's also powered up by that king's lingering Nen after death, and its purpose is to carry out that king's dying wish, for Kakin to prosper through the ages by always selecting the strongest king. Each beast's form, ability, and attitude reflects the prince it's bonded to, but that doesn't make it a reliable ally. In fact, it's a parasite using its prince as a battery to power its own independent action. The prince can't see it, can't coordinate with it, doesn't know its ability, and can't deny it permission to drain all of this aura. And its usefulness is further constrained by the intended function of the war. Since it was designed to test leadership skills rather than brute strength alone, the guardian beasts can't attack each other or their rival princes directly. In Momoze's case, her beast almost struck the first blow in the war, opportunistically attacking Sayerd and coercing him to kill Woble's guards, and Woble herself if Kurapika hadn't stopped him. Its coercive ability points to Momoze's spoiled nature. It simply asks for what it wants until it gets it, like a young prince who believes that's just how the world works. And its immediate reckless attack reflects Momoze's absolute confidence in her birthright. She's the only possible king, so there's no need to play it safe. The result is an exhausted Momoze lying vulnerable in her bed with no beast to save her. You could say the 12th prince was a victim of her own immaturity here, but what exactly did she do wrong? Being spoiled gave her beast a pretty powerful mind control ability, and the overconfidence that made it reckless was a trait that she shared with pretty much all of her siblings. All the princes believe they're destined for the throne, so all their beasts have this potential to get cocky, overexert themselves, and leave their princes in the lurch. And that's not the only way the guardian beasts might prove a liability. They serve their princes, but again, they're ultimately obedient to the first king, whose Nen created them. So first and foremost, they serve the succession war itself. If an alliance of princes wants to end the war early, they can't just tell the beasts to stop fighting. They'll keep on fighting by indirect means until they're down to one winner. That's another reason Kurapika's coalition plan has to fall apart in the long run, unless he finds an off switch for the war itself. The fact that the beasts are keeping them all locked in the war whether they like it or not actually makes me wonder about the weird sarcophagi room. In the first video, I speculated about how this device might empower the winning prince, but maybe that's the wrong idea. After all, the worm toxin ceremony is supposed to empower the last one that remains, and the guardian beasts are the worm toxins. Maybe the whole war is about selecting the strongest, cleverest beast to power up, and having that beast is what will make the new king so great. If so, you can almost pity the Hueguo Rose. They're all just accessories to their ancestors' Nen and their ancestors' ambition. So, these are the three mechanisms that murdered Momoze. Her queen mother had to pick a child to sacrifice. The guards left in her room wanted her dead for a combination of reasons: orders, self-interest, self-preservation. And her beast left her defenseless because it had too much pride to consider failure an option. Hanzo may have cracked the case and punished the killer, but when you look at it this way, Tufty was almost incidental. All you can say about him is that, for whatever reason, he struck first. That reminds me, I said earlier that Momoze's beast almost struck the first blow in the war. As we saw in the last video, the very first blow was actually struck by Silent Majority, who killed those first 5 guards. Silent Majority and Tufty almost seem like they're following the same orders, by striking quickly against a young, defenseless prince. So what if they did get the same orders because they've got the same boss? I admit it's not much of a connection yet, but it's enough to put Tufty's employer, Queen Swinko, under suspicion in the Silent Majority case. No one else's employees have been in this much of a rush, except for Vincent, but Silent Majority definitely doesn't work for Benjamin. In the next video, I'll examine all the evidence and make my prediction about the assassin's identity. This video might not age very well, but that's part of the fun. So look forward to it, and if you've been enjoying the series, make sure to